Well, hi there, everybody. We've got a Gary Neville podcast for you, the first of the new season, the first weekend of the new Premier League season just finished. Gary, we've watched the last game, we've watched the champions. What have we seen?
Smooth performance. I mean, the worst team to possibly play in the heat that we had here today. And as you come into the game, you're thinking, how are West Ham going to cope with, you're thinking 60, 70, 80% possession against them. Need to get the first goal. They had that chance in the first couple of minutes. But City passed it around. Not really at the best. They were clumsy at times. They were a bit sloppy at times. But in two big moments in the game, Haaland, the stellar signing of the summer, not just for City but for the Premier League, just comes alive and demonstrates everything that we've seen previously for his country but also in Germany. And it's a scary sight. There's sometimes you see a player that's a level above. Physicality, strength, combined with quality, understanding of the game, timing of the runs, the ability to finish. And they're only the exceptional players in the world. And there are some players, thinking about how you would mark that out there today, there's nothing you can do at times. There is nothing you can do. You're just helpless because of the quality, and that's what we saw. It was a couple of brilliant moments.
At a time where City were a little bit stale, we talked about them being undercooked in the Community Shield, and they lost their opening league game last season, having lost the Community Shield as well. But the ball that got Erling Haaland in for the penalty, was that typical Pep Guardiola? In other words, did Erling read it, and is that him showing in the first half of his first game that he understands the system?
Yeah, I think last week there was, after the Community Shield, there were a lot of questions. We've done media days this week where we've been asked consistently, will Erling Haaland get used to Manchester City? Will it take some time? And the general answer has been it might do. It may take some time. We know Pep Guardiola's signings, big signings, sometimes take 12 months. Jack Grealish, hopefully this season, will do better than he did last year. But the two goals that we saw, whilst the patterns were the same of the slide passes through, they were very different. What I think we saw was the type of goal that Manchester City will have to deliver for Haaland in the first half of a game. When a team is more compact, when a team is sort of resilient, and they've been in shape all week, practicing about deep defending. So they're going to have to get the ball closer to Erling Haaland. And now I'm going to say closer to him. They're going to have to, Sir Alex Ferguson used to say this all the time, it's no good in the early parts of a game thinking you can force a ball into your striker over the top. The defenders will be too aware of it. You've got to get within 5 or 10 yards, and then you're sliding those little passes down the side and through. And that's what we saw from Gundogan. What we saw in the second half with that goal is a goal that you'll see when the opposition team are chasing the game and there's more space. So I thought that was a perfect Erling Haaland introduction to Manchester City today, of exactly what I think we'll see throughout the season. It'll be harder for him in the first half, but so many times with City over the last couple of years, we've said, where's the centre forward to get that goal in the first half? And, last season, I think there were a few games where they didn't score in games and other things like that. He's just a top player. I'm not going to mention him in the same sort of breath as the sort of the Brazilian Ronaldo or as Zidane. What strikes me when you see someone like that, it's almost like the superhuman in the sort of strength of their body. I said before, he's like Drago, where he just sort of picks people up and throws them to the side. Or the Bond villain Jaws, that it's almost unfair.
Yeah, it's usually fictional, but this is fact.
it feels unfair to have that much pace, acceleration, strength, ability. And it becomes so much more difficult for everybody else. There was a moment in the Community Shield last week where he went in that right channel and he just nudged Andy Robertson, who I couldn't speak more highly about over the last 4 years as a defender. And I thought, that's the Van Dijk and Robertson channel he's just done that in. And he got his shot away and it was saved. So there were glimpses last week, but what we've seen today is the real thing. We've seen it happen in front of our eyes, and it's a sobering thought for the rest.
We'll go on to the other games, but could it be the story of the first weekend, that he started here with 2 goals, 3 points, and delivered when you'd give him a few weeks to get into his stride?
Yeah, because we were waiting for everyone's thought about the connections, the De Bruyne to Haaland connection, and we've seen it today. And we're only at the very beginning of that connection, and that's the scary thing. We see Gundogan play that pass in the first part of the game and slide it through to him. There are so many instances in that game where they've not seen his runs still. Imagine when they start to see his runs all the time. I remember the striker that I always remember at United, Ruud van Nistelrooy, who was, didn't have as much pace as Haaland, but he's a brilliant, brilliant striker. I remember Sir Alex used to say, there's only bloody Scholes in it can see his runs. The rest of you are numpties, that type of thing. And he was right, because the relative is his runs were so subtle and clever, and they were so often.
They might not have numpties, Manchester
No,
City.
they've got numpties. They've got a few more, to be fair, that can play. But he said Scholes, the only bloody player that can see his runs.
Yeah.
And that's why Scholes, and Beckham could see him from wide positions in the crosses. But at the moment, there are people on that pitch for Manchester City who've been used to playing with different types of strikers, not even strikers at times, false nines, over the last 2 or 3 years, who are just getting used to having a centre-forward again. And Sergio Aguero was very different, very, very different than sort of Erling Haaland. So all their brilliance in the last few years and the rhythm and the patterns of play that they've had are altered slightly by this introduction of this monster of a football player who sees things differently, who wants it a little bit earlier. You always think of Pep's teams playing that extra pass in the final third. He wants you not to play that extra pass and play it early. So there'll be that sort of what would be that transition and combination of the Pep style, but with Erling Haaland in there and sort of adapting to that we're going to see. And we saw it today, the best of it with the 2 goals, but also there were occasions whereby he didn't just quite get it through to him, and people didn't see the run early enough or the pass early enough.
I'm going to move it on to the other half of Manchester, but I'd like you to consider it in 2 phases. Brighton winning at Old Trafford, and deservedly so, the way they played, and Manchester United under a new management with 1 or 2 new faces, and Cristiano Ronaldo being involved in the end when we thought he might not be. You've sat up here, almost where you're sitting now, and watched the game on the monitor. What were your conclusions?
I wasn't surprised, Martin. I think I showed you a text that I sent an hour before a game that a friend had sent me and said, what do you think? And I said 2 things will happen here today. Brighton will be the better team, and Manchester United will just get over the line, maybe through Cristiano coming on and scoring, or Brighton will win. I just thought that for the promise of pre-season, that Brighton are a better functioning team at this moment in time. They play good football, they find pockets, and Manchester United have got the same players that we've seen in the last 18 months, 2 years. And the reality of it is that we've seen the same type of performance. The only question today was whether Brighton could take the chances and score. And they did. They scored 2 goals and should have maybe had a penalty in the second half. So for me, the outcome of the game was exactly as I thought it would be an hour or so before, as I thought it would be yesterday. And the reason I say that is that the players that Erik ten Hag has been delivered at the start of the season as his squad have proven last season and the season before. The season before, the fans weren't in the stadium. When these players had 75,000 fans in the stadium or they've played in front of crowds, they've not been able to handle the pressure or have the ability to demonstrate that they're good enough for Manchester United. And it's not just Erik ten Hag, it's been with Ralph Rangnick and it's been with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. For Erik ten Hag to be delivered that squad on the opening day of the season is unacceptable. Let's be really clear.
And Martinez played, didn't he?
Yeah, Martinez played. And to be fair, he did some good things, but there was also a couple of tough moments. I think, the first goal where Welbeck just makes that running behind him in a couple of weeks. The Premier League is very different. I saw great players for Manchester United take a few weeks, a few months to get used to it. We see Manchester City players taking a few months, a year to get used to it, certain aspects of the game. The penalty in the second half, he might not get away with that in the future. Patrice Evra in his very first game against Manchester City, made a couple of mistakes like that. So, no reflection upon the new player that played, or is Eriksen played as well, so new players. No reflection really for me upon the coach. The coach, to be fair today, has probably seen what it is. I think that's probably smacked him right between the eyes today. He'll have had promising pre-season. The thing is about those lads, they're really good lads, some of those lads in that dressing room. They actually want to play for Manchester United. They give their all every single day, but they're not up to it. They're not up to it, and it's been proven over a period of a couple of years. And I say, for Manchester United to be handing their manager, their new coach, having seen so much evidence over the last year or so that those players aren't up to it, that squad, I think, is unacceptable. It means they haven't got the business, and that doesn't mean to say in the next 3 weeks we won't see Manchester United do business. But is the money there that's needed to not just be able to get Frankie de Jong? This is more than Frankie de Jong that Manchester United need to be able to overhaul the sort of mentality and the performance levels of that squad. Is the money there, and can they get the players over the line? Because what Manchester United are in danger of, or could be in danger of in this next few weeks, is acting desperately. Because obviously after a result like that, they've got Brentford away next Saturday and they've got Liverpool coming to Old Trafford 2 weeks on Monday. And that's a painful one. You know what it's like when Liverpool come to Old Trafford, when City come to Old Trafford. If you want to highlight problems, and they will highlight problems because they're just so good. So no reflection upon the players. They're there. They're soldiering on. They're doing what they do. It's doing what they've done for the last year or so. They're giving the same levels of performance. They're too easy to play against. Roy Keane said it today, but I said it last season. Manchester United, I think, are the easiest football team that I watched to play against in the league. And that's not changed in the last 4 weeks of Erik ten Hag's coaching. And it won't do. There's something inbuilt in them that means that they don't quite get it. Their front players don't get it. I've highlighted out here today Bernardo Silva, a player that maybe wants to leave Manchester City to go to Barcelona, and Cancelo sprinting back 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go. I don't see that enough from Manchester United. And they just don't have it in them at this moment in time, those players, and they need help. The coach needs, he should really be going in to the executives, to the board, to the owners tonight and saying, we've got to spend some serious money and we've got to go and get those players now. Now, the problem is, everybody knows when Manchester United come and knock on the door next week, they could be desperate, and the club don't want to come across as desperate. They want to try and change that approach, and I actually completely support that. But they shouldn't be in that position, because we've known for 8 months, Martin. You've known for 8 months. I've known for 8 months. Everybody at Manchester United and the fans have known for 8 months, and everybody in football has known Manchester United needed an overhaul with players going out and players coming in, and they haven't got their business done. And others are getting their business done. And you have to ask the question, why? That question has to be asked. I'm not going to go overboard, but there is an element of negligence when you don't do the business in the transfer market.
It's ended up with a result that's not a surprise. I mean, Manchester
Martin,
United
honestly,
rarely lost at home when you were playing. And obviously
Martin,
that's a long time ago.
I showed you that text partway through the first half that I'd sent an hour before the game. That was exactly what I expected to see today from Manchester United. Brighton being functionally, tactically, technically better and more confidence and belief. I expected that, absolutely. The only thing I thought was, we're not Brighton alike. They've lost a couple of players, and they lost a couple of players, by the way, as well. Basuma and Cucurella are the best players, maybe. We always know Brighton create chances. We always know Brighton play great patterns of football, but we always ask the question, can they get those goals? Can someone finish them? And quite often when we see them, they don't. And that was the only doubt I had today. Would they score the 1 or 2, 3 goals that they would need to win the game? Or would, ultimately Manchester United be able to get over the line through being the worst team on the pitch performance-wise, but just having more firepower because they've got Sancho, Rashford, Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. And that's what happened last season at times when they got over the line in many, many games. They were the worst performing team, but performances in the end will harm you. Results will harm you when your performances are continually at a low level. And out of possession, Manchester United are at a very low level. I've watched too much of them, Martin. I've watched too much of these good teams. I'm here every single week. You are.
Well, let's talk about another very good team, Liverpool. Darwin Núñez, they've done what looks like very good business. I was Community Shield last week. He scored a very clever goal, and an even cleverer one against a very good Fulham side back in the Premier League. And Liverpool will be the first to admit that they were given a really tough game.
They were very good for them, weren't they? I mean, that was probably the surprise of the weekend. And, I think during the week, again, you do these sort of interviews and you maybe sometimes lazily just think, I actually said it, I think, that there's only once, I think, in Premier League history that the 3 teams that have come up have gone back down. And I think this season it could happen, Notts Forest, Bournemouth and Fulham. But looking at Fulham yesterday, and you think, Bournemouth obviously as well. You look at Fulham yesterday, the level of that performance was high, the football was quality. And they look dangerous.
And Mitrovic, of course, is a handful in international
he's a
football.
handful. Yeah. Núñez is a handful, he's a menace.
Yeah.
When he came on, he was a menace and a handful, he was very good. But, all I would say is 12:30, sunny, in London, first game of the season. But it's been sunny here today, West Ham against Manchester City, and you've seen what the top team can do. Fulham yesterday deserve a lot of credit for performing like that, as do Brighton today. But I actually thought Brighton would perform like that. Graham Potter's had his team performing like that for many, many months and a year or two now. But I thought Fulham were excellent yesterday in that game. It was a real surprise. And not just that, to be able to keep coming back. Obviously Liverpool scored, and then you just think, all right, they're going to... But they didn't do. And they kept going, and I thought it was very promising for Fulham. And maybe sort of us expert pundits that we're supposed to be, we don't really know much about it, do we? When we think about it, the fact of the matter is we're saying that they're going to be in trouble. But if they perform at that level, they're going to pick up a lot of points for them, and they'll be dangerous. Craven Cottage used to be a very difficult ground to go to. I remember playing against Zaha and Boa Morty and thinking that's as tough a game as I've ever had as a centre-back. playing against a Championship team, I think, at the time, and they were in the FA Cup, and they came up that next season, and Zaha scored against me on the first game of the season at Old Trafford. So Fulham have been that difficult place to go, that awkward away team in the past. Can they be that this season?
What about other parts of London? You were at Crystal Palace on Friday night to see Arsenal regenerated, if you like, by Gabriel Jesus and company, Zinchenko, others who they've done some business. We're talking about maybe Manchester United not doing business, but Arsenal have done their business, and Tottenham have as well. Chelsea are still doing business, and that's a three-pronged London attack on the northwest of England, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I actually obviously saw Arsenal, and I watched the Chelsea game last night. I didn't see Tottenham, and haven't seen Tottenham yet. But
Four without Kane and Son scoring.
Yeah, and I actually. During this week, I've said I actually think Tottenham are third this season. I just think that they're going to be a very solid outfit that are going to have consistency. The manager they've got, the signings they've made, suit the manager that they've got, obviously, because he's clever enough to bring the players in he wants. Chelsea, I think, was really important for them to get over the line. It was a difficult one, always going to be awkward. Everton not having their strongest team out was obviously a factor in that as well. But Chelsea have a little bit of instability in pre-season that's been highlighted by me and others. I think it was important for them to get that win. Arsenal thought that they were... The thing about Arsenal on Friday night is they played football that was absolutely sensational. Actually, for 15 minutes, better than the football I've seen here today from Manchester City. That's as high a praise I can give. In that first 15 minutes, it was electric. But actually, because of the four players they have in those forward positions, I actually expect that Martinelli, Saka, Ødegaard, and obviously Jesus. It was that second half that I was more interested in. They were kicking towards the end that I was at behind that goal with those Crystal Palace fans going mad, and the pressure was building, and the Zaha sort of runs one-on-one were more and more, and they were going deeper and deeper, and I thought the full-backs for Arsenal were getting put under big pressure, but they withstood it and they got through it. Now, it's only obstacle and hurdle number one in the season, but it was really important, having what happened last year against Brentford in the first game of the season on Friday night, that they got through that hurdle and that they could get the confidence coming out of it. And then obviously they can start to build the confidence about the fact that they can keep clean sheets, they can withstand moments of pressure. We've seen City here today come up against West Ham in that first 15 minutes of the second half. Difficult moment, they withstand it, and then they go and get that counter-attack killer goal. And that's what Arsenal did. They scored at a perfect time, 10-15 minutes to go, which just kills the crowd, kills the game. It was a really good night for Mikel Arteta. And I said after the game, the second half will have pleased him more than the first half. The first half, he'll expect those talented players, who we know are talented players, to play good football. What he wants is that those talented players, in the moments in the game that are difficult, support those back six and make sure that they're a compact unit and you can't get through them, because that's how they'll qualify for Champions League. Last season they fell apart and they were flaky and they wilted at the difficult moments. That was a good start for Mikel Arteta in terms of correcting that failure that they had last year.
And Jamie Carragher, who's commentating with me, loved Saliba. Gave him man of the match, and for a debut, a 21-year-old playing in the Premier League as a centre-back, there aren't that many of them, are there?
No, I referred to it as an early Rio Ferdinand type performance, and how I said that was that he reminded me of that. Comfortable on the ball. He's not quite got the
swagger.
Yeah, no, he's what Rio Ferdinand had in those early years, if you remember, his body wasn't quite connected at times to, I don't know you say it's in a kind way, but you just know that he'll get stronger, he'll get more wise, and you know that in 3 years, he's going to be a hell of a centre-back. He's a hell of a centre-back now, but when you see him in another 2 or 3, 4 years' time, like you say, to play centre-back in the Premier League, and I actually think Crystal Palace is one of the toughest grounds they ask a lot of questions of you, the forwards of Crystal Palace. It's not always patterns of play, but it's one-on-one, directly at you, challenging you sort of physically, running in behind you. They do that all the time, and he did really, really well. And it reminded me of a young Rio Ferdinand. I said that after the game, that you just know there's development in him, and that only going to get better. Interesting for Ben White, how he's going to cope, obviously being pushed out potentially to right back. But that's the way of the world. They maybe have to be a more compact back four on that right-hand side.
Chelsea, a lot of changes behind the scenes. What did you make of it? Was an attritional game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Goodison.
Yeah, it was a game probably you expected in terms of, Chelsea signing players, still signing players. A little bit of dissatisfaction in pre-season. Tuchel's been a little bit sort of at times critical. Need a centre forward. Obviously Lukaku goes. So there's still questions over Chelsea. Maybe I'm doubting them too much and a little bit, but I just feel as though they're not quite smooth, they're not quite satisfied. Since that sort of Abramovich situation has come to light, from the Lukaku situation last season,
And the defenders wanting to leave.
and the defenders obviously all been out of contract and leaving.
Yeah.
You've had that situation that they just felt as though it's been difficult for the manager and the squad, because these are senior players as well. The defenders are senior players. Lukaku's a senior player, and obviously the owner of the club's the most important figure. So they've had these big incidents and events to be able to have to deal with, and that's natural then that you feel a little bit less sure about Chelsea. I was last season, early parts last season, thinking they could run Liverpool and City really close, and obviously it sort of fell away. But I still think they had a really good season in many respects. They were so close in the cup competitions. I thought they were outstanding in Madrid, and to be fair, so unlucky. And Madrid just typified how they dealt with the Champions League full stop and went on to win it.
Luka Modric with the pass of the season did them.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So you think about they were so close last season in difficult circumstances. And I know that Chelsea fans are probably thinking, well, yeah, but we've signed Koulibaly, we've signed Sterling, we've signed Cucurella, we're getting players in. But it just seems a little bit more sort of like,
where are they going to bed
like a pinball type, so your head's moving, where's it going to be next? And you're not quite sure. You watch obviously a team today that are absolute machine in Manchester City. Chelsea are not at that phase yet, as you'll tell, and new ownership. So I think that it'll take a little bit of time to settle down. So the question's still there, but it was a good start and a really good win. One thing you have to do through these moments to build confidence and shut everybody up, people like me, is win. That's it, win. You have to win football matches. Good players at big clubs have to win football matches. If you're Manchester United today, City have won today. They've won well. But the headline tomorrow morning, what's it going to be? If you're a big club and you don't win matches and you lose at home against Brighton, Manchester United are going to be front and central, I suspect, tomorrow, because you get put under pressure. Same with Chelsea at the back end of last season. They were on the front pages and on the back pages. That's the way it rolls. Football's massive in this country. So as a big club, you're under pressure, you get asked questions. As players, the only way in which you can deal with it, and as a club, the only way in which we can deal with it is to win. And that keeps everybody quiet. And if you're not winning, there's the problem.
Last question, really, just generally about the season going forward. It is a unique season, 16 rounds of the Premier League being squeezed in. Are you getting any sense as you go around the place that this has got to be dealt with differently, or are they just going to play the games and, we're 16 games now, and we'll go off to the World Cup and we'll come back when it's over?
I think that, and I said this probably 8 to 10 years ago when Qatar were awarded the World Cup, if we're really being fair, forget the way in which it was awarded and forget the fact that which country has got it. If we're really being fair, the World Cup should be hosted on each continent fairly over a period of 20, 30, 40 years. So in 20 years' time, 24 years' time, there should be another World Cup in the Middle East. There should be. And you cannot play football in the Middle East in the middle of summer. The way in which FIFA dealt with it...
Hard enough to play here.
Absolutely.
In the middle of summer.
Martin, I mean, this is child's play, really. At 27, it was 31 on the pitch side. You go to Qatar in the middle of summer with the humidity and 40, 42 degree heat, you've got players in a whole heap of trouble. Not just that, Martin, you've got fans in a whole heap of trouble. And you saw how uncomfortable it was for some of the West Ham fans over there in that first half when they had they'd made these sort of temporary hats out of the banners that they were holding up. So every 24 years, we're going to have this disruption in the season if it's fair. And FIFA made the big mistake of saying it was going to be a Summer World Cup and they were going to have these air-conditioned stadiums. I never thought that could happen. I've been to the Middle East since 2002 on a regular basis. You cannot play football in that heat. You cannot play football with that humidity. It's dangerous. So every 24 years, we're going to have this. So this is the first time it's happened. First time a Muslim country has held a World Cup. Let's get our heads around that this is something that we're going to have to get used to. Not every so often, but every 20 years. And I think that, to be fair, the players, I have to say, the players nowadays, they play so many matches. They play so many months. It's 2-3 weeks off in the summer. It used to be 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. It used to be 3-4 months, maybe in the 70s and 80s. We used to have that cricket and football in separate seasons. That's just
you could play both, couldn't you, professional?
Yeah. That's just merged into one now, whereby football doesn't feel like it's stopped, where it's just continually going on. And players, to be fair, are resilient. They get on with it. They do their jobs. They're professional. And I have to say, in terms of the Premier League, we're seeing exceptional standards. We really are. In the last 12 to 18 months, we really have seen fantastic management, fantastic tactics, fantastic football.
And a short pre-season has led to a very entertaining first weekend.
Absolutely. And we look forward to next weekend now. Off to Brentford on Saturday. And then Monday Night Football, Liverpool and Palace.
I'll see you on the road.
Yeah. See you around, Martin.
Thanks, Gary.